Rocky Mountain National Park, one of the most visited national parks in the USA. In this video, I'm going to give you some tips, some tricks on visiting this area to have a fantastic time. And really, the videos don't do it justice, even though I have some high def videos to show you. This place is absolutely incredible, and I just want to show you around. This is my second ever national park I've ever been to. Hi, I'm Will. I spent my 20s living in a boring area with not much to do, and so I decided to pack up and travel the world through Airbnbs while working a remote job. I was willing to do whatever it took to live a more fulfilling and enriching life. Join me on my adventure, turmoils, trials, and tribulation. So Rocky Mountain National Park does not close. It is open 24/7, and so you also have to use your best judgment there. So because once it gets dark, you have to make sure you just stay safe. Of course, there are park rangers and the tourist center or gift shop. Those places are still open. That said, I found that unique about national parks. They do not close. Now, getting there on your GPS is actually pretty simple. Some places it's not so simple. You really have to navigate, scour the web, but you can literally put it into your GPS and drive there. Now, the road there is pretty rocky. It's hanging, like as you get closer, you basically hang a cliff. But anyone with some decent common sense and they're safe. As you can tell, I'm really excited to be here. They can find their way through very easily. Now, as you can tell, the footage is just incredible of this place. I'm using a mirrorless camera, so it's good footage, though it's still a budget camera, maybe $500. So the videos really don't do it justice. Maybe if I had like a $5,000 setup, you really have to see it to experience this. Coming from the East Coast, we don't see anything like this. In terms of the giant scale of this place, it is crazy beautiful, crazy amazing. Now, okay, so once you get here on your GPS, what do you expect? Well, first and foremost, make sure you reserve a timed entry pass online. They're not just letting people come in whenever anymore. Very recently, I think in the last few months, you have to reserve time entries. And those sell out. I would say they're not as crazy as the Wave to get into. As long as you book usually like a week or two in advance, you can get it. For me, I actually did it the day before. I was kind of last minute. What I did was I just waited for the lottery, or not even lottery system, for the reservations to open. And I believe they open at like 5 p.m. Central Time or Mountain Time. And you basically, if you just reserve them as soon as they open, there should be no problem getting them. So it really isn't that difficult to get reservations. But you'll need the time entry, which costs like $2. It's nothing. And then you obviously need your national park pass if you don't already have one. That's $23, or sometimes depending on the park it's up to like $29 per visit. Or you can do what I did, which is just get the all access annual pass, which is well worth it. If you basically visit more than 3 parks a year, you'll be spending more anyway, so it's better to get the annual pass. Now, once you get there, the parking lots or the parking lots are plentiful. You'll be able to find parking. There is a line to get to the park, but as long as you enter the park within the 2-hour zone of your time reservation, it should be no problems. And then once you're in there, it's fairly straightforward. There's all sorts of paths. It's usually this one main road, but they start to branch out into maybe 3 or 4 paths fairly early on. And then you can just explore, find some parking spots, park there, and then there's usually trails and pathways that lead you around. And it didn't take me long to just find a more secluded path. Yes, like on the road itself and in the parking lot, there's tons of people. And then, yes, if you go to some of the more popular beginner trails here, there's tons of tourists. However, it really doesn't take much to really get away from the crowds. But yes, you will see Lots of people here, especially if you go on a weekend like I did. And that's really all there is to it. I would recommend asking a park ranger at the there's like an entrance building. Once you first enter, there's multiple entrances, but if you can get to one of those entrance buildings first and ask a park ranger, they're usually there and there's a very short line. Ask them if they have any recommendations for beginner trails. Let them know your how long you plan to stay at the park, your level of experience, what you want to see, whether you want to see beginner or intermediate trails, or you want to see the must visit trails. They'll tell you everything. They have free brochures and maps, so everything's pretty smooth and straightforward. So if you can do that ahead of time, it just makes it a lot easier, because that's what I did. And rather than having to kind of be nervous and scared and confused where to go, I was able to just go straight to the trails and parks that they recommended. And yeah, within that, you can still easily explore your own trails on your own, because you have your map, you have the directions, and it'll tell you where else you can go off the beaten track if you finished all their recommendations. So I highly recommend that to save time. There's definitely certain stations where you can sit, and there's picnic tables for you to eat food. There's rest areas with restrooms. So it really is a very streamlined park. That said, I think the hardest part is really just getting there, because if you use something like Google Maps versus Waze or Apple Maps, it can be harder and confusing. I found that to be the case. So what I ended up doing was I just called in a few hours before, like very early morning. They have a phone number online. And that's the thing, like when I looked at the website, it wasn't clear where I should go, where I should drive to. And so I basically just called in to their general service line, and I requested to speak to someone who was there, and there was no wait. And I basically told them, hey, this is my first time, I'm really nervous. What address should I go to? Where should I explore? So they gave me the exact address, which was basically one of the rest stops, or basically the gift shops. And they said, use this entrance. There's a few entrances. Go to this one. It's the easiest to find. Just type it in Google Maps and you'll find it. And I think that saved a lot of time, a lot of headache, because when you type it into Google Maps, it's rather confusing. There's it'll take you up this mountain, and then you don't know if that's the right thing, because there's a bunch of other entrances, and then it's all clumped together on the mountain on the map. So I just got very nervous doing it that way. So by just calling in to confirm, I was able to save a lot of time. And your mileage may vary depending on what day you go and when you call in. I got the impression it's a very popular, crowded park, so probably best to, if you can, call in ahead of time, much earlier, because that way, if you do it a few days before, you won't run the risk of waiting on the phone line for a long time for other people to finish their calls. So I really recommend it. As you can see, I saw some really awesome trails here. And these are basically a lot of the basic beginner trails, the most visited trails here. And so I basically just drove in, and then along my drive, I saw some bison, I saw some moose, and then that was a first for me. The park itself was massive, and it was so amazing to see these things, because from a far distance, these giant trees look like tiny little things, and there's just so many of them, and it's just so large. You don't see that on the East Coast. You never see a landscape that large, with so many trees, mountains, rivers, lakes, all within viewing distance. It's just larger than things that I see on the East Coast, being an East Coaster. So it was amazing to see these things for the first time. Definitely worth checking off my bucket list. And then I just basically parked at the parking lots that they recommended. I took the trails they recommended, and then some of them I took extra turns, or I went further along, or I did additional trails along my way between the ones recommended. And then that's where I got off the beaten track, saw less tourists. But it was really amazing. If you want to stay with the tourists, you can. I mean, there's constantly cars driving through, and they're from states all over the country, really. It's amazing how far people come. And my favorite part was basically just seeing this moose that was basically just chomping away near one of the parking lots. It was the first time I saw a moose. It was a male moose by the antlers. Amazing. And there's naturally about a dozen people taking photos. A lot of them had these expensive telephoto lenses, and it was just a sight to be seen. So highly recommend it. So amazing. Get it while you still can.